we go ahead and call to order the May 2nd meeting of the West Bath School Board. Next, we go ahead and pledge allegiance. I pledge
allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
At this point, I'm going to make a motion that we go into executive session pursuant to Title I, Chapter 13, Section 6056F of the MRSA for the purpose of discussing student records.
Second.
Motion's been made and seconded. All in favor? That is unanimous. Okay, we're back into executive session.
No.
I'm sorry, back into general session, out of executive session. I do not have any comments this evening. Next on the agenda is approve the minutes for April 4th, April 11th, and April 25th.
I have an amendment. On the third page of April 4th, it's noted that I made a motion to approve and I seconded my own motion.
Well, that doesn't sound right. We'll have to go back to the tape.
Videotape.
Who made the second?
I can only guess, but based on the history of the motions at that meeting.
Which page? Under number 2 on page 3.
Yeah.
Yes.
They were, it was Mrs. Wallace.
Mrs. and
It
Mrs.
was, yeah.
Yeah.
It was both of them. Went in that order.
Okay, so we'll change the second to Mrs. Wallace.
So with that amendment, I move that we accept the minutes as otherwise.
I'll make a second to that motion.
We have a motion by Bob, a second by Ashland, to approve as amended. All in favor? That is unanimous. I'm not aware of any adjustments to the agenda. Public comment? Any member of the public have anything they wish to say? Company reports, 9.1 Policy Committee. No report this evening. 9.2 Technology Committee, no report. 9.3 Facilities Committee.
I do want to mention that during April vacation, the cabinets were installed in the 3 classrooms that they were scheduled to be installed for Mr. Schultz and Ms. Goulette and Mrs. Upham's room, and the work is unbelievable. It's so fantastic. It cleans up the rooms so well and creates much more space. It's beautiful. So because the anticipated costs were less than we had budgeted for, and because the functionality is so much improved in terms of storage, and because we have a little bit of excess in our current maintenance line, I've authorized Mr. Fromiller to do the cabinets in the teacher's room. Because it will clean up the room, just, in terms of the way it appears, but the amount of storage that we gain in the classrooms, that's where in the teacher's room is where we store all the teacher's supplies, it's just gonna make a tremendous difference. The other reason for wanting to move ahead with that right now is because we've eliminated all of our upgrades for next year. And so if this work happens in June, then we come back next fiscal year and we've still sort of continued the pattern of making improvements, even though there's nothing in the budget for next year. And so it just seems like a wise way to utilize a little bit of excess funds, some from having the project come in less than we had planned for initially. But, so that work will happen in June to be able to improve the appearance and functionality of the teacher's room. I do encourage you to go down and take a look because it's beyond what I could have expected in terms of the appearance. And, we also upgraded the plumbing, fixed the water fountains, it's just a whole new space.
So I heard that the water fountains were unexpectedly powerful.
Mr. Schultz said the first thing that happens, kids went in and turned on the water, just to make sure that the right thing works. So I definitely would encourage you to go down and visit those spaces.
Yeah, that's great. I took a look before the meeting and they came out fabulous. So much better. 9.4, Finance Committee. Payroll warrants were approved on 4/10 and again on 5/1. And AP warrants I reviewed on 4/4 and 4/12, and Dennis was 4/4 and 4/11. Item 10, Superintendent's Report.
So in terms of the financial report, with 25% of our year remaining, we have 36.61 of our budget remaining. But in actuality, if we remove the $285,000 that we've anticipated for carryover, then we have 28% of our budget remaining, which is great in terms of we are on track with all our budget lines down to the penny. But like we keep saying, it's also concerning because there's not a whole lot of wiggle room. Not that we anticipate there to be things that come up in the last couple of months of school, but we are budgeted to the penny as we have been for the last couple of years. There are no lines that appear concerning to me at this time. I will at our June meeting ask for permission to transfer 5% of funds as we did last year in the event that we need to do that for our audit, but at this time, there's nothing that jumps out as an area of concern. In terms of district updates, we're at the point in the year where there's almost so much going on and happening on a daily basis that there's too much to just put out there in terms of updates. I want to just say that our expeditions are in full swing. This morning we spent our late start time reviewing where we are, what our plans are, what the final products are, what the authentic presentations will look like, what the expert resources and field workers look like. And while our topics are topics we've used before, the quality and depth of these expeditions is beyond anything that I've seen before. It's amazing to see how far our staff has evolved in their expedition planning work. I would really encourage you to put June 14th at 3 o'clock on your calendar to come to the Celebration of Learning, because the work that this staff and students are doing is superior to any that we have experienced in the past. Next month, you'll have the full program and be able to see in detail the things that classrooms have been working on. And if you follow any of their Facebook pages, there's always daily updates on what's happening in our classrooms. But I was really impressed with the depth of the work as we review where we are today. I want to also just take a moment to sort of give Mrs. Cosgrove, our school counselor, some kudos, because outside of what I would expect her role to be, she has assisted students with applying for camp scholarships. Last year she was contacted by Mary Meeting Audubon, which is part of the Maine Audubon Society, to say that Tanglewood, Blueberry Cove, and Camp Bryant, all 4-H camps, have 6-day, 5-night over 6-day, 5-night sleepaway camps that are $625 in tuition that students could apply for to have tuition waived and to be able to go. And so she built it in last year into her programming, where students filled out camp applications and wrote their narratives of why they deserved camp scholarships. And last year we had 7 students who received scholarships at $625 a piece. This year we had 9 students who received scholarships. And that's a lot of West Bath kiddos who are taking advantage of this opportunity to attend week-long overnight camps. And I think it carries over from sort of the Chewonki experience, where they have experienced that ability to be outside and to be away from home and participate in these camps, and now they're ready to jump in further. It's something that I wouldn't have expected Mrs. Cosgrove to do as part of what her daily job is, but is, again, just above and beyond and in service of our kids and in our community.
What grade are the students?
So she has 4th and 5th graders who have written applications and have applied, and then there are some 3rd graders that she didn't go into the program, but she shared the information with parents, 3rd graders who were interested, but felt like that really had to be a little bit more of parents participating in that.
How many students applied in total?
All of them were funded.
All.
Any student who put an application in was funded. Then there are 2 students who did not apply as part of Mrs. Cosgrove's programming because they were awarded scholarships last year, but they applied again on their own, and having done it last year, want to do it again, and they also were awarded. Those are not included in the numbers. So it's an incredible resource that she's provided to our kids, and I'm grateful for that. I want to also let you know that West Bath School is participating in Better World Day, which is this Friday, May the 4th. And it's a day that is set up across the country for EL education schools that's devoted to service. So we are focused on giving back to those who have been supporting us, the West Bath community, and then some other organizations, Kelton in particular, who the Kennebec Estuary Land Trust has been a huge part of many of our expeditions and provide us with a great deal of services and expertise and facilitate lots of our field work. So our K2 students are actually going to be keeping their services local and giving back to our school. And you may have noticed when you came in, all the mulch that's ready for them to be, they're going to be weeding and spreading, weeding the gardens, spreading the mulch, replanting our pollinator gardens, and beautifying our spaces in preparation for all of our spring events, just to make things more welcoming for our community. Our third graders are working with the West Bath Cemetery Committee and the West Bath Historical Society, and they will be cleaning up the Birch Point Cemetery. And we're hoping that we can continue to grow these types of partnerships with the cemetery committee so that perhaps adopting, cemeteries across the community, but it gives us the opportunity to work with our town committees and our those who are on the committees, but also to dig a little bit into our past of who are the people who have made up West Bath. And it definitely connects to exhibition work that we have had around immigration and the state of Maine and the local West Bath area. And both 4th and 5th grade will be working directly with CELT and Becca Story Land Trust to give back to them. And so the 4th graders will be going to Green Point Preserve to do some research and collect data on the vernal pools so that they can use that data to plan their new trails for the Green Point Preserve. And 5th graders are going to be trimming branches, clearing brush, taking care of the trails at the new preserve, and hauling lumber and building bridges and getting it ready for visitors for the year. So we're really excited to have the opportunity to give back when these organizations have given so much to us. So that is Friday. It's a possibility that the rain will be more than we can handle. If it's light rain, we'll be out there. Otherwise, we'll reschedule a Better World Day, another day coming right up. I want to thank our West Bath community crew who hosted, along with Mr. Bodish and Ms. Foulette and Ms. Marco, a family game night last night. I was not able to attend, but it was focused on West Bath School Trivia and West Bath Town Trivia, and the participants said they've had a lot of fun. And Mrs. Wallace attended, and Ms. Demers, so they can update you a little bit more on how it went, but I've heard really good things about getting our community together. And I do appreciate the effort and time that people give to finding fun and new ways to bring our community together. It was a new idea, and it was exciting to see it come to fruition. May is a hard time to do anything because of all the spring sports and activities and nice weather, and I'm glad that people still made the effort to get here. And the last thing I'll just put on your calendar is that May 30th at 5:30 will be our spring concert. And that is our concert that we hold outside, weather depending, and it is a K-5 concert. So you get to see the whole scope and sequence of our kindergartners through our 5th grade and our band and chorus. And I reviewed the program today, and it looks like it'll be a great program. So that'll be at the end of this month.
Thank you very much, great stuff. Brings us to item 11.1, instructional waiver from the Department of Education.
This is not an action item, it is just to provide you with the information that, as you know, we had in March indicated, as the regulations say, that we would be applying for a waiver, and then in April put in the request for a waiver, and now have heard that our waiver has been approved. So we have been approved for having 2 of our instructional days waived. This is as a result of the October windstorms, where we lost 5 days and then we had 6 snow days. So 11 days was clearly more than we had planned for in terms of making up in our school calendar. The statement that the commissioner said is, having reviewed the reason for the request, I've agreed to approve a waiver of 2 instructional days for West Bath students. An important factor in granting this waiver is the extent to which Superintendent Thompson and the school board have gone to plan for and reschedule canceled days. So that was something that from the moment we got back in session in November, that the staff and the board really took seriously in thinking about how can we begin to make up some of this time. And so we have, through many creative ways, made up 3 days, and now having 2 more days waived. That puts us right back to where we'd anticipated having the end of year be just 1 day later. So our last day of school is scheduled for June 20th, and our 5th grade step-up day will be Tuesday, June 19th. I wanted to let you know officially that this had been received and that we now are able to plan for the end of the year.
Do you have any idea how rare or common this waiver is this year?
I don't. Keith and I were talking about that before the meeting, and I know that there were some districts who said they weren't even going to ask. And then I haven't heard officially of anyone else being granted one, although you had mentioned another district today that had been granted a couple of days also. So I don't have an answer. I'm curious.
And the other question is just, is there a financial impact? I know that schools get reimbursed certain amounts of money for certain numbers of days.
In food service, there is a slight impact because we'll have fewer subsidizable days. The other impact is that we have contractual obligations that we still need to fill if days are waived, and so we'll meet those contractual obligations, but we won't be having those 2 days of school. So those are where the impacts are. The other thing, just to note, that it says in here that have agreed to approve a waiver of 2 instructional days for West Bath students, and I called immediately to say, so what does that mean for staff? Because I didn't want it to be a surprise that students had the days waived, but staff didn't, and staff is included in that also. But the reason it came to be a concern is that several of the schools, districts have given up late starts as a way to recoup some of the lost time, and it ends up being that giving up late starts only counts for students and not for staff. And so I didn't want that to be the same case with these 2 days. But we're in it there for that.
Just out of curiosity, RSU 1, they've done the late starts for the rest of the year. Where does that put them as ending? Do we know what their last day is?
I believe that I don't have the current year in front of me, but their last day for students is that Monday, and then staff go 2 more days.
So Monday to, well, this isn't the right calendar.
Right, this is looking at next year's. So we get out on a Thursday.
Yeah.
But we
Monday.
also started after Labor Day and they started before. So
Right.
we end up really being right back in line with where we were.
Father's Day is the 18th? No, Father's Day
17th.
must be the 17th, but not on the 18th.
18th.
Interesting.
Thank you. Great news. Also, I think not only does the board and yourself deserves credit, but the staff certainly does as well for their flexibility. Again, giving up a Saturday for professional development day, so we make it another day. So good work all around. Brings us to item 12.1, approval of probationary teachers. 12.1.1, probation 1 from probation 1 to probation 2.
So teachers have 3 years of probationary period, and each year you approve moving, recommended to the board to be able to move from probationary 1 to probationary 2, or 2 to 3, or 3 to continuing contract. And so we look at those separately, and then make the decision to approve or not approve. I would not bring you names that I didn't endorse in terms of the approval. The first one you'll see on here is a school nurse, which seems funny in the approval of a probationary teacher in that category, but they fall under that collective bargaining.
So the recommendation is to move Susan Burgard from probationary status 1 to probationary status 2.
Was that a motion? It is, I second it. Otherwise, if it's not, I make a
It's a
motion
motion
to
now.
approve the school nurse from probationary 1 to probationary 3.
1 to 2.
I'm sorry, 1 to 2.
I'll second.
We have a motion by Bob, second by Ashley. Any discussion? All in favor? That is unanimous. 12.1.2, probationary 2 to probationary 3. We have Esme Roulette, Elizabeth Jarvis, and Caitlin Boulette.
So we can make a motion to approve the 3 promotions from probationary 2 to probationary 3.
We have a motion by Bob, second by Mary. All in favor? That's unanimous. 12.1.3, probationary status 3 to first year continuing contract. Recommendation for Jennifer Harris.
So I'll move that we approve the transfer, I guess, of Jennifer Harris from probationary 3 to first year continuing contract.
Second.
We have a second. All in favor? That is unanimous. 12.2, approval of 2018-2019 school calendar.
Okay. So in front of you, you have next year's school calendar, and it does mirror much of what we had in this year's school calendar. We are requesting that the school for students starts on September 4th, which is the day after Labor Day, with 2 days for staff development on August 29th and 30th. There's a PD day and a holiday in October. November is where we have our first round of student-led conferences, and the last couple of years, we've been able to build that around where the Veterans Day holiday fell, so it had been earlier in the month, but without having Veterans Day during the week, we don't have that opportunity to build it in, and so it felt the least disruptive time is to have it during the Thanksgiving week as we've done in the past. In looking at December, the 21st would be a half day, and then we would go to winter break, and we would like to continue with the pattern that was in the calendar for this year. We didn't do because of making up storm days, but last year we had our PD day the day after the 1st, so on the 2nd, and it was a great opportunity for students to have a little bit longer break, but for us to come back and dig into our work and get ready with our winter expeditions. February break is based on when President's Day falls. There's a March PD day. April is the same as it has been this year with our student-led conferences just falling before vacation. And May has Memorial Day. The 7th would be the end of where pre-K would fall, and the 19th would be include the last projected day of school with 5 storm days. And so this gives us then 175 student days and 180 faculty days, knowing that of course the calendar is subject to change. There are a couple of things to just note that this is more similar to RSU1's calendar than it has been the past 2 years, where it puts the November conferences in line with where their conferences are. And some of the differences though are that we would like to continue starting after Labor Day. We feel like it's better for our community, it's better for students, the feedback from parents has been that it works better. There are some families that have students in both schools, and that does mean that they don't start the same day. But the feedback has been that it's been a very positive change to have us start after Labor Day. Other difference is that our PD day would be on October 5th versus theirs on October 12th, and that just because it makes more sense to have one long weekend rather than 2 long weekends in a row. And so we would like to build it in as we have connected to Columbus Day to be able to hope that students are going to be more likely to attend school rather than take 2 long weekends. Another difference is that we don't have the need to close for Election Day. RSU1 has Election Day as a PD day, but because voting doesn't happen here, we don't have that need, which allows us to have the January PD day. And then the other difference is the March date. For our PD day, I think RSU1 has it on the 8th, but for us, with the way trimesters fall on the 15th, we feel it's a better use of our professional time to have it after the trimesters close when report cards have gone home, rather than having it beforehand, because otherwise your focus is on creating report cards rather than the professional learning that we've been able to do when it falls afterwards. And the interesting thing is that in terms of the Brunswick calendar, this is exactly in line with the Brunswick calendar other than that January PD day. And so it's, in looking at the 2 districts, we're closely aligned with that this follows more closely to their calendar, but it's definitely been the pattern that we've had since we've withdrawn in terms of creating our times.
I make a motion to approve the 2018-19 calendar as written.
Second.
Motion's been made and seconded. Any discussion? All in favor? That is unanimous. 12.3, the 2018-2019 board calendar. This follows what we've done over the last couple of years. When we first formed, we decided we wanted to meet the first Wednesday of the month generally. And at that time, the board needed to meet at 6:30. We've had some discussions in the past about, does it really make sense to meet the first Wednesday of the month when data's not necessarily always available from the state? Maybe we need to push it to the 2nd, maybe we'd have a benefit to do so. And then the question becomes, does 6:30 still work, or do we want to try to move forward so we're not running into that 8 o'clock hard stop we have? It's listed in the agenda as no action, so we can't vote on that today. So I'd ask that folks give that some thought and see if we'll meet it, add the agenda again next meeting so that we can take action if we choose to. Personally, I think moving it makes sense, but we'll have that discussion.
Well, I noticed everybody was here at 6 o'clock, so maybe for me, A more pertinent question is, should our meetings start at 6 or 6:30? We, at one point, were allowing people to leave work and to travel, and that required some additional time. We thought, is that still the case? Or, it would be nice to get home early. And for those that eat dinner after the meetings, it's probably good also. It's just a question.
Yeah, I could certainly do either. Quite good with what it is.
I get out of work at 2:30.
We can, we'll add it as an action item to the agenda, and I think moving the week and the time, something we should explore.
The state updates come out on the day after we meet. They come out on the first Thursday of the month, so we're always a month behind with state updates. So that's the reason for wondering if we should move that to the second week.
I would say ideally for me, which it doesn't make a difference because my schedule is all over the place, but it would be really great if we were having the board meetings the third Wednesday of the month, because it's the same time I have them for work. So I could go from that board meeting to this board meeting and get it all done all in one fell swoop and have one night where I'm doing board meetings. But that, I mean,
We could do that if we put them at 7, because that's when PTO meets.
Really have to look at what the impact is on the budget calendar more than anything else.
right.
Uh,
That just for me, having them at 6:30 on the third Wednesday would be perfect, but I'm flexible with whatever works for everybody else.
I will note on the established calendar, we have a meeting on January 2nd. I think at the very least, we need to look for a different date for January where it's not a school day. We've just had break. Probably wouldn't be the most productive time to have a meeting. I'm not sure I really want to rush into a meeting on the 2nd of January. But we can hope to change that next week as well.
Well, and notice that July 11th, so obviously July 4th is a Wednesday.
And July has always been it's a placeholder. If
Yeah.
we don't have, any action, then there's really no need to have a meeting, and
Well, when
we'll cancel it if we can.
In the very first year, we questioned whether we needed to meet every month during the
Right.
summer. And that first year, we did.
Well,
We
the
did
only-
action items.
Really, the only time we would need to is if we needed to make a higher approval.
Right.
If there's no need to do that, then there's really no need to meet in July.
Which I think we would know by the end of June. So if we kept it on the calendar until then we could make a decision about the July date.
Yeah, that seems reasonable to make a decision in June whether that should be canceled or continued or scheduled. So let's keep that in our consideration.
Absolutely. So we'll revisit and finalize at our next meeting. Tentatively, this is the schedule. This brings us to 13, back to public comment.
I just have one. Thanks to the superintendent, the staff, and the board for working on the storm days and taking those into consideration, and so we can still end on the anticipated end date, and requesting the waiver, because that was above and beyond, I think. So that's good. Thank you.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Seeing no other public comment? Item 14.1, on May 15th at 5:30 at the West Bath Fire Station, there'll be a public hearing. We'll review both the school budget and the town budget. If there are any questions from the public on any of that, we'll answer those at that time. Typically, the full board hasn't had to attend, it's been the finance committee. You're certainly welcome to attend if you want a riveting evening. 14.2, town meeting is May 29th at 6 p.m. here at the school, and I would encourage all of you to be there to cast your votes for the budget. And then 14.3, the next regular meeting of the school board will be June 6th at 6:30 here in the library.
It's my brother's birthday.
I entertain a motion to adjourn unless anybody has anything else.
Move to adjourn.
Second.
Motion by Bob, second by Mary, all in favor? We are adjourned.